This is The Reckoning, 27 July 2026, show number 336, and 1 hour of unfiltered political truth starts now. History often turns on the smallest of things. For example, the North found the South's battle plan in a cigar box prior to Antietam. Had they not, many people believe that the South would have won that battle. Why was that battle pivotal? Because when the North won, President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which kept England and France from joining the side of the Confederacy. Very pivotal battle in American history. In World War II, had the Japanese changed the JN-25 code prior to the Battle of Midway, would we have deciphered it? Would we have been able to turn the tide of the Pacific War inside of 1 hour? Now, when I'm reading for pleasure, one of the things that I like to read is historical fiction. Historical fiction usually takes a small turning point like that and alters it, and then it postulates on the different outcome and what history would have looked like as it runs through time. Now, I did find myself, and over the weekend, because of a couple of events that I looked at, thinking about World War I. Now, I have often said that World War I is the stupidest war in history, and I still think that. Think about this. Many nations back then had kings or queens that were actually blood related. All of them professed the same religion. All were in the industrial age and had basic rights at varying levels and basic self-government, with a couple of exceptions. And yet, they fought a civil war amongst European Christian nations. I wonder, had they united and driven east and taken Constantinople back from the Turk and then driven south to the Arabian Peninsula and destroyed the black rock that the Muslims orbit around like the monkeys from 2001 in A Space Odyssey, what would have happened? What if the nations of Christ had united and slain the infidel? Because if we take control of the Arabian Peninsula and drive Islam out, we discover oil within 10 years of that. Crazy. Now, there is no question in my mind that the world would be a better place without Islam. It's one of the reasons I know the religion to be false, and I do not feel the same way about Christianity. It is a shame that modern Americans and Europeans have difficulty recognizing political systems that are not only hostile to our way of life, but then fail to actually generate the courage to do something about them. Now, reading works of historical fiction also gives you an appreciation for how important the events of the day are. What is today's cigar box? What is today's breaking of the JN-25 code? Now, for example, in my state of Texas, the choice could not be more clear right now between the Republican senatorial candidate and the Democratic senatorial candidate. And yet, I worry we may lose this election due to the apathy of the voter. We cannot put cisgender, non-binary god, reparations-paying, gay twink, Jimmy Talafrico in office. Ken Paxton is the clear choice. But because the Republicans in the 89th legislative session, the 88th legislative session in Texas, and honestly, for all of Governor Abbott's 4 terms, have done very little for us, many people I know are just going to stay home. So if they stay home, then what does 2026 and beyond look like? Well, I think we get absolutely nothing accomplished as a country during the last 2 years of the Trump administration, because we will have nothing but impeachment trial after impeachment trial. I can see John Thune now on the Sunday news program saying, "We have to respect the Constitution. The House has proffered impeachment charges. We have to honor them." When the Democrats ignored the impeachment charges against their clown, Biden. Now, I despise lukewarm Republicans far worse than I despise the ardent Democrat. They at least believe what they're saying, whereas the lukewarm Republican believes nothing. Lukewarm Republicans are going to cost the party the House, possibly the Senate, and honestly, at this point, I think we're going to see a blue wave roll across this nation. Why? Not because their policies are right. Democrats are at 21% with the American people, but because we're unwilling to confront the rot in our own party and cast it out. When you have weak men like our sheriff, who allowed the Constitution to be violated when Stuart Rose was seized. When you have weak men like Jared Patterson, our representative, who cares more about what he's going to be doing at night when he's in Austin rather than caring about his voter. When you have weak men like our SREC committeemen with monstrous personal issues continue to win elections. When we see the GOP only take from the people and do nothing they promise year after year, election after election, Now is when they're going to reap the whirlwind for sowing the disdain for the voter that they have. So what are we going to do about it? We are fighting a battle that I am pretty sure we're going to lose. Well, you do what's right. And what do I that? I've already fought one of those battles that I knew I was going to lose when I went into court in Washington, D.C. And guess what? I lost. But that doesn't mean you don't play. So tighten your cleats. Tighten up your chin strap like Dr. A did when she ran for Congress. Put your mouthpiece in and go out and engage in some way. I say it all the time. This is full contact politics. We talk about children and where they're going to be. If you want your children to have the America that you had, you must get engaged and you must work, because the communists are like Sauron. The eye is always on us and they're never going to stop trying to destroy the West. There ends the rant for the day. All right, Rox. What do you think? What have you done? And I know you got some health issues you're working through. Dr. A and I've got an easy one. Southern's busy raising her kids, but I need Roxy to get involved. So, Rox, what do you want to do to help the Republican Party in Florida?
Oh, well, thanks for coming out of my face out of nowhere. I do all I can. I try to volunteer where I can when I can. But when I'm down, I am down, unfortunately. I wish I could go and do stuff and say something. I feel like I don't always have a voice or the proper voice because I don't have children. So I don't want to get involved in school stuff specifically because I don't have that background to drive it. Even though I'm very strong-minded about children and how you should raise them, I don't have to do it myself because maybe I have a different opinion. So I don't want to put myself in that position. But at the same time, do advisory stuff or whatever I think, because I just like me. I like to see both sides at all angles of any coin. Pancake has two sides. You flip it, there's another. And I like to point out that perspective to people and do the best I can with that, just because I've lived a very different life, especially in the military, and I've gone through a lot of challenges. So I do understand some of the libtard side. Like I said, my mom used to call me a mixed breed, and so I was like, no, they've done gone completely crazy over the past 2 decades, to the point where I can't even understand them. They've been hijacked by, and that's why I call them a mind buyer, because they literally have been hijacked. These people have been brainwashed. But I still try to understand regular people because there are still regular people. So I like to point out that side. I don't know if there's a position where I could do much more from Florida, because Florida's a red state and the only free state in the country. Okay, maybe not the only. Texas, I would put like second, but Florida is the best, just saying. We don't pay taxes.
I'm not going to argue with you about Florida being better in Texas as far as conservative goes. Not wrong. You pass more conservative bills. Your governor's farther to the right. I want my state to move to the right to where Florida is. So you are not wrong there. All right, let's get on with topic 1. Now, I've got an interesting history with The Economist. Sorry, Dr. A, go ahead, and then I'll go to topic 1.
I was just going to tell Rox that campaigns always need volunteers for calling and texting, and they have apps so it's not on your number. They always need help. So if you have somebody that's running a campaign that you want to volunteer for, please reach out to them. You would always be an asset there. And I was just going to say, Larry, I was unsuccessful in my campaign, but I've made lots of inroads in both counties that I was running in, and I'm still working to help get out the vote for the one county that I was the largest county in my district, and then I happen to live in the smallest portion of the county that's in the district. And in that county, I've been nominated for the Central Committee. So I'm getting active still.
No, I appreciate that. Like I said, after I lost, I served on the Committee for Priorities for Denton County. Went down and spoke at the Republican Convention of Texas for something that I care deeply about, the anti-Sharia laws and the anti-Islam laws. So I'm still in the game. That's the way it goes. All right. So The Economist magazine. Now, when I first started working for American Airlines, The Economist was there, and I liked it because it basically shied away from the far left or the far right in American politics. That's when I first started reading it in 1998. Over the next 3 to 4 years, it started drifting to the left like every other news organization. So that's when I lost history, or lost, I'm going to say, I stopped reading it because I don't like reading things that are just patently false and biased from a left-wing standpoint. That being said, I was on Politico today, scanning it and seeing what the communists are up to. Again, know thy enemy as thyself, and in 100 wars you will not lose. So let's talk about Elon Musk and why do they hate him so much? All right, now there's a couple of segues in here, so I want everyone to be thinking of their most hated straw man argument that the left makes. We'll get to that, so just bear with me. Now, Elon Musk, let's be honest, the guy I think is on the spectrum. He's a complete mystery. He is a billionaire entrepreneur with a focus on green tech and environmental impact. He supported Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. He believes and he says that the progressive movement changed and he did not. Now, he put out a cartoon, and I meant to find it, and it shows center, left, right, with Elon standing center, left. And then it shows the lefty running off into the eons, far left, and then the center moving to where he is now center right. That's what he says has happened. I don't think we can really argue with him. The left has gone insane. So I don't think that the progressive movement changed. I think that we just have a much clearer vision of who they really are. Now, in 2022, Elon Musk declared his total separation from the Democrats, stating that they are the party of division and hate. The leftist media, like the flying monkeys out of the witch's castle, descended on him, and the attacks have continued ever since then. When Musk made a move to purchase Twitter and fundamentally disrupted the left's complete total dominance of the social media landscape, they shrieked with rage and spit venom. Notice how I'm doing what they do by using adjectives like shrieking with, or adverbs, shrieking with rage and spitting venom. Now, I remember his purchase of X with joy because I believed that he was going to return free speech. They had every other platform and still do. So how critical was X in getting the word out for the 2024 election? We will never know. The arrogance of big tech still annoys me. No one should be able in this country to politically censor you for different opinions. Now, in a recent interview with The Economist, the venom from the left was on full display. But the tactics of media disinformation agents and provocateurs have honestly become so obvious that we are all tired of their repetition and their tediousness. You could see Musk's exasperation during the actual interview. He's heard these leading questions and biased insinuations 1,000 times before. The phrasing of the question and the use of adjectives poison the facts everywhere in leftist media. Now, after the interview, what happened? More of the monkeys, all right? Online magazine and a Swift-owned far-left outlet, Gizmodo, published an article claiming that Elon Musk was melting down over normal questions. I doubt very seriously if the world's richest man was melting down. I think he's just tired of the stupidity of the left. All right. That is the gaslighting from the left that we see all the time, and the projection is palpable. Musk has been directly and indirectly accused of promoting racism, fascism, sexism, and even genocide. Though Doge and the much needed shutdown of the corrupt, through Doge and the much needed shutdown of the corrupt USAID institution, he is now accused of genocide and killing millions by withholding humanitarian funding. Now, to me, there were two parts of the interview that are absolutely telling. The first was when the reporter asked Elon how he felt about people loathing him, and asked him if he understood why. And the way she said it was typical liberal to me, meaning, you just don't see that people don't like you. They loathe you. And do you understand why? As if she's a mom talking to a 4-year-old boy, not the smartest man in the world and the richest man in the world. Now, Elon told her that people hate the media far more, and the fact that he has 250 million followers, I believe, probably means that more people like him than loathe him. Now, the second part of the narrative, all right, was when he interrupted their narrative that Doge had killed people. I think he said that there is 0.0 is the percentage of people killed by Doge. What did Elon do? He ended their corrupt USAID largesse. He refuted every point that she made and rejected their basic assertions. So now we segue. All right, this is something that the left excels at, and honestly, it drives me insane. A straw man argument. Now, what is a straw man argument? A lot of people don't know, right? A straw man argument is a logical fallacy in which someone misrepresents, exaggerates, oversimplifies, or distorts an opponent's actual position, then attacks that distorted version instead of the real one. Let's give an example. Carmelo Anthony just had a trial. All right. He argued that he was not guilty for reasons of self-defense. The video, the evidence, the eyewitness testimony said that No, he stabbed him and that self-defense was not at play. All right. The left knows they lose that argument. The argument being, did Carmelo Anthony murder Austin Metcalf? They lose that argument every single time. So what do? Rather than argue that he's not guilty, they argue that the judge was biased and the process was rigged. So those are their straw man arguments to avoid the more obvious argument that they're going to lose on. So I want to look at the straw men in our society right now. Elon just hit one. USAID shutdown led to deaths. Okay, I've heard that everywhere parroted inside the media. I haven't seen it. All right, I just don't see it at all. All right, Republicans want to cut Social Security. I'm telling you, for those of you that are new to the political game, literally since started paying attention to politics, so roughly 1977, every election cycle, here Republicans want to cut your Social Security. Why do Democrats say that? Because they want to scare the elderly into voting Democrat. All right, there's another one that drives me absolutely crazy. Republicans are racist because they want to secure the border and deport illegals. No, there's a difference between being a racist and a difference in wanting a secure border. So I thought I would ask my co-host, and I'll ask you, Dr. A, starting with you. What straw man arguments drive you insane in our country right now? And everybody that wants to, please grab a mic, come up, and tell us what straw man arguments annoying you.
So one of the ones that made me the maddest during COVID was the running around saying the unvaccinated are killing people. And they do the same thing. They say that anti-vaxxers want children to die of measles and polio. And lastly, because I'm a big Second Amendment proponent, when they say that Republicans want everyone armed and don't care about school shootings or mass violence, make me mad.
And that's like every single time that happens. All right, what about you, Rox? What straw man arguments do you have that just drive you insane?
Oh, I agree with Dr. A's ones, but I guess more on like maybe the recent arguments of keeping men out of women's or biological men out of women's sport means you're transphobic or you're homophobic and all that. Like, no, nobody said that. We're just protecting little girls. And that's literally what the whole like past. I don't know where's everybody been the past 50 years? Like, do you want to go back to the 1940s? But either way, like, it doesn't make you transphobic or homophobic just because a biological scientific thing can be proven. So I really hate that one lately. There's so many. When I was like thinking this over, I was like, oh my God, I can go down. But I'm just going to go down recent because Dr. A covered a lot of the good ones, especially for like, it's just their playbook. It's literally what they do. Yeah. Like, what do you mean? You hate everything? No, I didn't say that. I actually just said I think this is right and this is wrong. It doesn't mean you got to tag on 50 other things on top of it just because of it. But that's what you do because they project and they do all that stuff because it's quite hilarious when they do it because you're like, wait a minute. And if you have any like little bit of logic, you can like attack them back and be like, no, I didn't say that. Repeat back to me what I said to you. And they don't have anything. Use that against them.
No, I totally agree with you. And honestly, they're so insane, you just can't even really rationalize with them. All right, Southern, your turn. What is your straw man argument that drives you nuts?
Trump, say somebody will always comment, but Trump XYZ. Won't have anything to do with him, but it's about Trump. Big orange man.
Orange man bad is definitely one of their things that they like to do. Hey, getting back to Carmelo Anthony for a second, I'm seeing everywhere on Facebook, they're saying, oh, he's getting a new trial and all this nonsense. So just so that we're perfectly clear, Southern, could you tell us exactly what's going on in that case right now?
So they filed an appeal, which everybody's eligible to file an appeal for. Everybody should file for an appeal.
Yep.
Nothing's been decided. There's no way he's going to get a new trial. Not that I've seen, not anything that they submitted as a reasoning behind getting a new trial.
Just so everyone understands, he's not getting a new judge either. What happened is Judge Roach was offered to recuse himself. He refused. And in accordance with the law, there's an appellate judge that is going to review all the information to see if Judge Roach should be recused. So there is no new judge yet. There may be, there's not. And all his lawyers did was follow the normal process for someone. Honestly, he's lucky that he didn't commit this murder a few years later, or he would be metaphorically riding the lightning. Texas doesn't do that anymore. We have lethal injection, which is what he would be receiving. All right, so let's get back to Elon for a second. And why do they hate him? All right. Their real agenda was shown in their line of questioning. The global elites in the far left present a false narrative as if it's consensus amongst everybody in the world. The notion that they represent the majority and the majority is angry with Elon is dead wrong. But what was Elon's sin? He trespasses against the liberal order. Perhaps more than his purchase of Twitter, which made them apoplectic, they were particularly sensitive about his closure of USAID. Why? Not because they care about starving children with AIDS in Africa, or they care about any other issue really. What they cared about was how many US dollars they could suck out of the American taxpayer's wallet into the treasury to get into humanitarian projects where their donors, their spouses, could suck those dollars out of those humanitarian projects and charities and put them right back into the hungry pockets of Democratic politicians and leftist NGOs. That was his far greater sin. Remember, people will they'll look at you funny when you're just saying bad things about them. You start hitting them in the pocketbook. Now their level of hatred is going to ratchet up 8 or 9 notches. And so that's when they really start hating him. All right. I want to look at an example when I say that USAID was the central funding hub for the spread of woke ideology and propaganda around the globe. Okay, that's his sin with USAID as well. That is a parallel sin. So look how quickly transgender activist movements dissipated once federal funding through organizations like USAID dried up. And I did not know this until I read this article. USAID was funding shelters and services for the invaders coming up from Central America through Mexico seeking to enter the U.S. illegally.
Through Catholic charities and other nonprofits. Yes, sir.
We are paying for them to invade our country. We paid for it, and not one person has been held accountable, to my knowledge, for that crime. Why those people are not all sitting in prison, rotting away, awaiting trial, I would say I don't know why, but I do know why, because the Democrats control the Department of Justice. It's not our DOJ, it's theirs. It is not the American people's Department of Justice. It is not the American people's FBI. It belongs to the Democratic Party, no matter who's in charge. So we've talked about Elon's sin of restoring free speech, his sin of hurting their pocketbooks, his sin of destroying the funding source for their woke ideologies. But he also is now an example of what happens when you leave their plantation. Leftists and radical collectivists do not perceive themselves as individuals. They only see the greater movement. And any individual who walks away from the collective and takes his platform with him, especially somebody who, in my opinion, is the smartest man in the world right now, and is certainly the richest man in the world, will be viewed as a traitor and a thief. And that is the way they view him. Elon Musk is a blessing to the United States, not only for creating Teslas and SpaceX, but primarily because he restored free speech and he fully exposed the funding mechanism of the woke mind virus and its authoritarian media control. Did you know that a 2025 poll showed that 70% of Americans have low or no trust in the media? My question is, why do they still have 30%? So we talked originally about the straw man arguments that are being made. What narrative being pushed by the media right now irritates you the most? There's two of them for me. All right, one of them is that we are somehow controlled by the state of Israel. I don't believe it. I believe that Donald Trump is the president, but given our system of government, he's being impeded by a uniparty more dedicated to getting along and preserving the status quo than actually having change. That media, that narrative that Israel is in charge of the United States drives me crazy. All right, Rox, coming to you next. So what other media narratives are driving you insane right now?
Israel is very vitally important to military strategy and all kinds of stuff, but I think it's hilarious that they think anyone controls the United States. I always say this, every single country has a deep state, and they have these bad actors and people who want to infiltrate all governments in every single country. And everyone's like, well, they're their little CIA version. Okay, cool. Every single country does it. So please stop with this argument. It's just so ridiculous at this point. Nobody controls us. If anything, we're probably doing it more than anybody else. China, Russia is the absolute worst. I don't know. There's so many on the media. I'm actually, can I just go back to something you said a few minutes ago?
Of course.
You reminded me, I love the Democrat their entire party is like imploding right now because they realize that DSA is taking over and infiltrating so hard that they're losing their mind. And I don't think they even know how to use these strawman arguments at this point, because they're literally like, oh my God, we're being taken over by communists. I think they're realizing it slowly. And so I think watching that on the media right now, especially the segments, are like cracking me up the most. I'm not even seeing them lately. I did see them a lot before, but I'm loving it though. I love watching this is the mistake you created and you encouraged, and you literally wanted to put a Nazi in.
Oh, I know. Isn't that insane? An actual guy with an SS tattoo. Insane.
And a terrible human being on top of it, just all around. Look at the interviews of people who vetted them. They don't know what they're doing, and they talk like this.
Exactly. All right, Southern, what about you? What media narrative is driving you insane?
The whole race thing, like Carmelo Anthony was only being held responsible because he was black. Nolan Wells died because he was black. Like, all of this stuff isn't even close to the truth. But that's what they want to spin it into, and I'm sick of it.
Am as well, and getting about time in the election cycle where the left is going to try and ignite the race riots across the country. So just be ready for that. It's like a plan, almost like they like these things. What about you, Dr. A?
Like it's in a playbook?
Imagine that. All right, Dr.
Orange
A?
man bad. Orange man bad.
Yes.
It's all Trump's fault.
It is, and I don't know why they had him go and speak at that correspondence dinner. Again, criticized last week the staff work. What were they thinking was going to happen? He was going to tell some joke and suddenly Caitlin Clark, or not Caitlin Clark, I'm sorry, whatever the CNN chick is, and is going to, Dylan Mulvaney for CNN. I can't think of her name, but is he
Caitlin Clark.
Is he going to think actually happen? All right, go ahead, Panda.
I was just going to say, Dr. A, you just reminded me, the Virginia lady who accused of, we found like 6,000 plus people that are non-citizens, but it's Trump's fault. That was when she said orange man's bad, that's the latest, it's Trump's fault, even though it was in the prior administration, had nothing to do with Trump. They're still somehow finding a way to blame Trump over the last 4 years, even though he wasn't even in office. This is like cracking me up. How many times, even the drones, remember the drones guy?
Yep.
But Trump wasn't in office yet. He wasn't even elected when that was going on. People
so
they have short
sad.
memories, and they're retarded. Come on, just look at the dates at least. Google it.
All right, I hear you. All right, Crazy, go ahead, sir. What media narrative is driving you insane?
Well, I think I have a prospect to the media narrative that needs to be considered. The psyop that's involved, and I'm going to say it, nobody else wants to. You obviously have certain organizations that own the media, yet you have Trump against the media, yet he's in bed with Netanyahu. There lies the psyop.
Would like to see an objective measure in some way. And again, everybody always says that, the Jews control the media. All right. I don't see it. I don't. They certainly don't control
X.
X.
Larry.
What?
It's the CCP. It's the CCP that controls our media.
How is it the CCP? Look at the CEO's name. Are they CCP?
Yes, sir. CCP
No, they're
pays
not
for
CCP.
the advertising that makes these companies jump. Therefore, when CCP snaps, the companies jump.
We're talking about China?
Uh-huh.
Crazy. We do know, based off what the president put out last week, that China was paying reporters to report hostile against the president. So I see what you're saying.
Our only gripe with China is economic. The reason for the strive for AI is to be the lead in AI against China, and it's purely economic with them. We don't have any physical kinetic threat from China.
Yes, we do. They've been.
No, we do not.
They've been
have
hitting
any
us with.
physical
Excuse
threats.
me. We don't
have
talk
no
over
threat.
each other in this space. We've been having biowarfare issues with China since COVID, and if not before. And on at least a monthly basis, we're arresting a Chinese person bringing either a pathogen of some type or a mold type thing coming over the border and trying to plant it into our food. There were some wild frogs that would damage the water supply that they tried to plant as well. I am of the belief that the cyclospora is from that very thing, but hey, what do I know?
All right, Crazy, I'll give you the last word, and then I got to go on to the next topic. But go ahead, sir, with the last word.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel. Look, that stuff goes on all the time, and it's not just China. There's other organizations that try to poison our food chain and our water all the time. You have to look at things on a macro level. The whole reason for the Strait of Hormuz is economic. Everything we do in Iran and Iraq is purely economic. It has nothing to do with anything that has to do with China. China is completely separate on the economic front than Iran and Iraq, other than the fact that they want to use the yuan as their dollar. I look at it things from an intelligence standpoint, Lieutenant Colonel. I don't look at what everybody else believes.
Yep. I understand. All right. Thank you, sir. Southern, go ahead, ma'am. And then I want to go to the next topic.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
All right. Let's talk Flashpoint, Romania. All right. This, again, one of the things in Crazy's military, I'm military, Rox is military, I believe Grizzly's military. All right. We just look at the whole world a little bit differently. And I see the world right now as a series of flashpoints. I'm actually really a lot more worried about World War III than I have been in a while, because I know that the Chinese and the Russians are providing intelligence to the Iranians that they're using to target our bases with drones and missiles and other infrastructure. So President Trump specifically warned them not to do that on Truth Social, and he wouldn't have warned them not to do that if they weren't already doing it. To be fair to them, though, where do you think the Ukrainians get all of their information? They get it from Uncle Sugar. We play the same game they do, all right? And again, feel like it's a bad Wonder Woman script or whatever, but once the God of War is out of the bottle, he's going to keep running as long as you let him. And we've got too many areas right now that could escalate massively, and one of them highlighted itself again over the weekend. All right, in Romania, all right, which if you're a dinosaur like me, you still think of as being Eastern Bloc, but Romania is a NATO member. Romania has American F-16s, and Romania doesn't like Russia. So this week, we saw the Ukraine war spill over into Romania when the Romanian Defense Ministry shot down 2 drones that violated its airspace within 24 hours. The military said that their radar systems had earlier picked up a drone operating in the vicinity of the Ukrainian border, and F-16s were scrambled and successfully shot it down. A very similar situation played out Friday over an unpopulated area near Padina, which is a town northeast of the capital of Hungary, capital of Romania. In that case, all right, it was Italian Air Force Eurofighter Typhoon jets deployed, and they shot the missile down. Now, authorities did not immediately identify the drone's origin, but they're pointing to the Russian military. Romanian Defense Minister Radu Minuta was called into the national media and said the impact site and the drone wreckage are currently being analyzed, but the pattern is consistent with previous flights by Russian drones. Early indications say that it was a Shahed-type drone. Where did the Russians get the Shahed? From Iran. All right. There have also been past instances of Ukrainian projectiles entering friendly neighboring countries' airspaces. So where do Shahed drones play into all of this? I worry that what is 2 regional wars can be merging into one, all right? But each instance creates new tensions between Russia and NATO, and currently, Ukraine is hitting things that are going to anger the bear, so to speak, not more than they already have. They hit a beach, I believe, and they've been hammering their oil industry. The Kremlin has been alarmed of the U.S., the Trump administration, transferring 5,000 U.S. troops from Germany to Poland, all right, which is right on Russia's doorstep. Now, do you guys remember when the Berlin Wall fell? Probably not. You're all probably born after that, or most of you. All right. But the U.S. Secretary of State, James Baker, said that NATO would not move one step east. And now we have combat troops in Poland and U.S. bases everywhere. And NATO basically is right up on their border. All right. Again, the neocons run the government. All right. One other thing that I'm going to tell you that's being hidden, but believe that the Iranians hit a Saudi Aramco oil processing facility. Again, if I was the Iranians, would not make peace with President Trump. I would hit the oil facilities because higher gas prices hurts the entire U.S. economy. All right. Now, if I was President Trump, would actually be choking the life out of Chinese oil. No oil would flow to China. Why? Because China is behind Iran and backing Iran in this. So again, we got ourselves into a war that I said would cost us the midterms. And as we get closer to the midterms, it gets more and more likely that this war is going to cost us. I don't see any way out of this. I don't see us having the political will to do what is necessary to bring them to the table. And I think even if we did have that will, we would be so, I'm going to say, vilified by the rest of the world that it would hurt the United States moving forward. Do you see any off-ramp? Southern, I'll come to you. Is there any off-ramp from this Iranian war?
I don't see one right now. The only way would be if they laid down their arms, but I don't see them doing it.
Yep, I'm with you. All right, what about you, Rox?
Off ramp, we're gonna have to get on the off ramp, but you're talking about now, like how deep it has gone. Oh, they got to be wiped out. That entire regime. At this point, it's just there's good people there. There's people who don't want to be under this control, but they're clearly never going to stop. But we've known this. They've never stopped for the past 50 years. They won't stop.
No, I know that. I don't know how to get rid of that regime, though. Okay, again, I do. Nuclear weapons would work, but then what? All right. I also know that we could invade and topple a regime, but what are we going to be left with? A new variant of ISIS, a Shia variant of ISIS, as opposed to a Sunni variant? There is no appetite in the American people, and I don't have an appetite to invade. I don't see an off-ramp here. We have probably bombed everything that's worth bombing, just given the way things work. Now, President Trump keeps talking about, and he said no less than 10 times, I'm going to bomb them into the Stone Age. You can't threaten unless you mean to do it. It just doesn't mean anything anymore when he says it because they haven't seen it. Now, I do like the idea of tit for tat. Meaning you hit a tanker, we drop a power plant. You hit a tanker, we drop a desalinization plant. You hit a tanker, we take out a bridge. So I like the idea of the equation there, but I don't know how we get out of this one. Dr. A, do you see an off-ramp? And then I'll come to you, Crazy.
No, sir. The only thing I see is speed it up, get her done. They're going to have to be wiped out. Specifically the IRGC, not the people.
Okay.
There are people of Iran that are good, and they need a place to be able to rebuild back up again.
All right. So 2 of my co-hosts have said wipe them out. How do you do that without putting troops on the ground in Iran? I'm asking. You can't unless a guy with combat boots is standing there making you change your regime isn't going to change. And I'm an air power advocate. Trust me, I would love to solve this problem from the air, and we can if we're willing to use the big bright boys, but I don't think we are. Go ahead, Crazy.
Part of what I was going to say, you just said, you're going to have boots on the ground over there. The topography of Iran.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And you're not going to get them all in one day for sure. But I've said from day one that as soon as we had presence in the Middle East, it was going to remain there. And I had flashbacks from prior military, retired military, especially in spaces. It'll be over in 30, 60 days. That's all a bunch of crap. Guarantee you we're going to have boots on the ground or at least a presence over there until the end of Trump's term, period. We can't do anything in Iran with, like you said, without a full presentation of theater.
I'm with you. I don't see any way out of this one. And that's why we talked about it before it ever even started, saying this is a really bad idea. Go ahead, Tracy.
Thank you. This is a very interesting topic, and this is a very important topic. We have not served, so I want to state that. But I don't see a way through this or even out of this either, except for what was just suggested. But let me say this, and I do not mean to put the cart before the horse. I also don't mean to even put a cart behind your horse. But I want to say this. If we were to put boots on the ground, let's say, or even this guy, okay, why would we want to risk our American blood for a regime, or not a regime, a people who don't even stand up for themselves? They're not willing to shed their own blood.
Okay.
Why is America coming to help?
That's being a little unfair because I believe in Rox, if you could look up there were a lot of them that were killed in the protests before we started Operation Epic Fury. And
there was like
40,000?
60,000. It was over 60,000 last I heard, but there are the people, they slaughter them. They literally are the thunder of terrorism across the world.
Yep.
They slaughter more Americans. They are behind every single IED. Every single funding goes back to Iran. They do it in a way to be like, oh, it wasn't us, but they funded everything. They promoted their magazine. I think it's called Inspire. We used to have a subscription that they sent out to the terrorists on how to make IEDs so we could know what they were like planning next, because it's a constant evolving field. Everything is funded by them, because they are the world sponsor of terrorism for the whole time, and their people do not want it. But they slaughter those people who stand up. They hang them on a daily basis. They're 19-year-old kids.
No, exactly. And again, I don't mean to drive this point home but I always do. If the left is ever successful in taking your guns away, they will do that here too. Make no mistake, they will. Everywhere that guns are taken from citizens, it happens. We're seeing it in Britain right now with people going to jail for Facebook posts. Never give up your guns. Now, and so Tracy, thank you for your comment, ma'am. I don't see a way out of this one. I really don't. Grizzly, will come to you and then back to you, Crazy. Guys, keep it at about 30 seconds because I got to move on to the next topic.
Okay, quickly. So off-ramp, I think there is an off-ramp. I think that's what Trump's working toward. The off-ramp is moving oil around through pipelines, international pipelines, rather than through Karg Island. And what do we do? I don't know the physical size and the manpower that would be required to seize Karg Island right now, but that's something I would be looking at for sure. And bombing the hell out of all those missile cities that are underground and Pickaxe Mountain. I don't know. I don't have the intelligence to know how much damage has been done and if it can be done without getting people down in there first, right? Some of those you might have to get people inside and bomb the lower levels of them, and then I don't know. Anyway, that's my thought. There could be an off ramp, but I don't see how it could happen before the midterms. So I'll land. Thank you.
No, I appreciate that. I say that Karg Island is too far up. We need something closer to the Strait of Hormuz. I know the UAE is looking at building a canal through their territory. That way we could move shipping through there. And I think I saw something about the Saudis working with a pipeline. So again, the solution is to eliminate them. Somebody did mention in the comments that Iran has two fronts. Okay, so on the north side, and it has been a long time since I've studied this, is it Kyrgyzstan? I can't remember. What all those stands up there in that region annoy me. So I'm not sure what's on the north side, but we could come in from the north. We certainly have the power to do it, but to what point? The second we set foot inside Iran, boots on the ground, it legitimizes the regime even more. So Crazy, I'll come to you, sir, and then Roulade.
I just had a thought come to mind, Lieutenant Colonel, and maybe this will ring a bell, but during joint ops in Storm, it was amazing to me outside the curtain of theater that a certain country would send unarmored Humvees into those areas where most of the pieces being put together in the dirt yard were from that country. It's amazing to me the stupidity that comes with these sometimes operations. In any case, getting back to Iran, Iraq, Israel, the Middle East as a whole, if we were able to structure something on paper economically, I think everybody would get along just fine. I'm out.
I hear you. All right, go ahead, Roulade, make it quick, sir, and I'm moving to the next topic.
I was just going to talk about the off-ramp. So bombing the infrastructure is huge because it makes it very hard for them to get back to these sites and rebuild, right, which we've seen is happening. Right? Other countries are coordinating pipelines to get around this so they don't have to worry about the Strait of Hormuz and taking some of that leverage away from Iran. And then the other thing is arm the citizens. The first time we tried that, the guns were taken by the Kurds. And so I think what Trump's really working for is more of coordination with other countries, right? So he's working pretty closely with Lebanon and Turkey. They seem eager to want to get in there on the ground. They have some skin in the game too, right? Because that's their oil market as well. So, and then you look at countries that are from NATO, like if you look at the EU, Germany, and a bunch of these other countries, if everybody got on the same page and said, all right, let's just get in here, ground game, one huge attack, they could easily liberate this, right? So really it's Trump just waiting to see how these other countries react and buy them time, because the UK has been infiltrated too with a huge Muslim migration. So they also have a battle on two fronts as well. So I think everybody has some skin in the game, and Trump's really just waiting these guys out and saying, let's go. Together they could easily do this, right? And so until that happens, I don't think there is an off-ramp. But I think Trump is showing us that there is, but other countries need to start stepping up.
No, I totally agree with you. They absolutely need to be doing that, and they're just not for whatever reason. All right, let's move on to the next topic. 1 second while I adjust. And Rox, I assume you're putting in the photos as we go through the topics. All right, talked about perception and bias in the media a little bit earlier. All right. And Southern, I'll bring you back up. Sorry about that. My bad. So one of the things that I do to try and stop my perception and bias is just go to the facts. All right. So that's the who, what, where, when, and then come to the why, but wait a little bit to get there. All right. So over the weekend, all right, a pride parade in Berlin was hit, all right, by somebody. So let's get to the facts. Here's the facts. On the evening of 25 July 2026, and I love how even Grok said this. Grok said a van was deliberately driven into a crowd. Okay, the van doesn't drive into the crowd. A person drove the van into the crowd. So that person was Abdul Balaut, who is an invader of Germany of Lebanese descent, and he drove into a crowd during Berlin's Christopher Street Day, which is a pride celebration in the Tiergarten Park, it's on the south side of Berlin near the central part of Berlin near the Brandenburg Gate. Now, one woman was killed and 29 people were injured, several critically. My numbers could be a little bit off on the numbers killed. Again, I do put the show together early in the morning, and the remaining pride events over the weekend were canceled. So here's what made me about this. Is the multicultural agenda so important to them that they're willing to sacrifice people that traditionally vote for leftist politicians in order to protect it? I believe it is. The problem of intersectionality, and engineered mass immigration is that progressive ideals are not shared by most of these cultures they're importing. Leftists envision a union, a coalition of socialists and minority groups joining forces to destroy the evil colonial West. But they seem to be ignoring the fact that these foreign elements entering Europe and the U.S. hate liberals as much as they hate conservatives. Now, this is a common tactic of the left to immediately try and blame things on other people if it doesn't fit their narrative, all right? So now let's get into the why. Did the guy do it? I'm not 100% sure, but his name was what? Abdul, and he drove his vehicle into a pride parade. What does the Quran say the punishment is for being gay? I'm just saying. So, common tactic of Antifa and their related organizations in the face of a terror attack or criminal event is to divert the public discourse. The pattern is undeniable and undoubtedly well planned. For example, public information on the assassination of Charlie Kirk was immediately diverted with false claims that the shooting suspect was right wing. When that narrative fell apart, what did they do next? They blamed Israel, Charlie Kirk's own organization, and his own wife on that. People, can you all right, anytime things get really complex, go to Occam's razor. All right, the simplest solution is normally the truth. What about Thomas Crooks? Did they tell us Thomas Crooks was MAGA? Absolutely they did. They hide his social media profile? Yes, they did. All right, we see it all the time. And somebody on one of their Twitter feeds over there said they hoped it was a white Christian that did it. So when a minority or an invader, they call them migrants, commits a crime against a white person and activist groups organize protest events against whiteness, as if white people are liable for the actions of minorities. Again, Southern, you talked about race. All right, I'm sick of it. All right, I'm exhausted with it. And again, cue the race riots. I think there was one over the weekend, but we're getting into stupid season. We're less than 100 days till the midterms. So here we go again. Why is it that every time an LGBT group is attacked by Muslims, progressives step in and protest against whiteness or against Western conservatives? Have they done this before? Yes. The slaughter at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando was associated with what? Was it associated with Islam? No. U.S. conservative movements. What was the name of the perpetrator? Omar Mateen. What religion was Omar? A Muslim. Now, the organizers of the parade have come out with a statement admonishing anybody who points out that the attack was done by a Muslim and that it proves that Muslim immigration into Europe is a problem. Why can't we look at the world the way it is? They assert that the attempted mass murder should not be used to create division. Are you kidding me? They are trying to kill you and you don't want them to create division. And they said at no point did they cite Islam as a motivating ideology. Then what was his motivation? What was it? Give us an alternative. All right, the organizers of the Berlin Pride Parade also said that yesterday's attack must not be used for political ends. Guess what? They've read Saul Alinsky's rules. No crisis goes unused. All right? Everything becomes political. I'm going to be honest with you. There are days, and this weekend when I was looking at the news, and as I started writing this morning, I feel like I'm Neo in the Matrix. I really do. And everything is propaganda, gaslighting, and illusion. What does it take to actually see the truth? All right, it drives me insane. It's obvious to me that the multicultural agenda and bringing in Muslims into our nation is more important than progressive ideology or the LGBT agenda to the left. If the woke left actually gets what they want, which is total invasion of the West by the third world, all of the principles they supposedly believe in will face elimination by those same group of migrants. Leftists don't care. What they want is just to burn us to the ground, and the end justifies the means there. What is going on in our society where we hate the truth these days? So again, as I started this article, when you're looking for the truth, try and just get to the facts. The who, what, where, and when, all right, pure facts as best as you can. And then give yourself a selection of the whys, all right? Am I jumping to a conclusion saying that because the guy's name is Omar or Abdul or Jihad or whatever his name is, that they're committing an atrocity based off their religion? Absolutely I am. But guess what? 70% of the terrorist attacks in the world are committed by Muslims. I've got the majority of the data on my side. Occam's razor says that if the guy's name is Abdul and he committed a terrorist act, he's probably a Muslim. Dr. A, go ahead.
And, sir, if the act was done for political or ideological reasons, why can't it be discussed as a political issue? That's what it was intended to be.
It absolutely was. All right. So, Southern, you may know this because you follow these things closer than I do. Court cases and things like that. Did that guy, Omar, did he get the death penalty? Or did the cops kill him that day? I can't remember. Okay. I don't know. Somebody look that up.
Which one
All right.
was it?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Which event was it?
That was the Orlando nightclub shooting.
Oh, that one I'm not sure. The one that just happened in Europe, I know that guy got shot.
Oh, he took the cure for radical Islam, the only cure. All right. From that, and Rox, have you posted the picture of the diversity barriers?
I'm about to do it now.
All right, guys, you got to see this. All right. The people in Britain, and again, I will tell you, the Brits have a very dry sense of humor that I do like, usually. All right. But they've started calling these diversity barriers. So a family summer beach event in the UK city of Nottingham now sits behind these portable barriers that Rox is posting. They are anti-ram steel barriers. And to me, they are just a pure admission that open border spaces have turned public spaces into soft targets. All right. Local authorities across Britain are installing more of them, and their critics are now calling them diversity barriers. I love this sense of humor. I truly do. Now, what are they? They're heavy portable steel devices designed to stop vehicles from being driven into crowds. Seems to me that Berlin might want to bring over a few more diversity barriers over there, and I'm quite certain the Germans are going to have to put a lot of these up for their Christmas markets here in a few months. So about 15 of the barriers now block the 4 main entrances to the beach. What does it say about the world today that we have to block entrances to our beaches? All right. The Nottingham City Council member Nagal Khan described them as an additional safety measure. All right, how about we just deport the Muslims? That would work. I want you to think back to the world before they started driving cars into people. All right, British towns did not need steel ramps that can stop a truck. Children played in squares without negotiating filler gaps between anti-ram devices or ram devices. Christian markets did not require military surplus concrete painted in festive colors, which is what the Germans had to do last year. The cost is not only financial. Every one of these barriers that goes up is a confession that the post-1990s experiment in open borders produced a security environment which has led to peaceful European nations becoming war zones. Politicians drone on about community cohesion and diversity is our strength. Disgusting. While the practical response is to harden every public gathering against the most predictable form of attack. When will European men say enough and start terrorizing them back? They congregate frequently in mosques and other places. They tend to live in the same neighborhoods. When you give them quarter, this happens. I hate seeing it, but I remember a day when you could actually drive past the White House in this country. I remember a day when concrete ballards did not line every federal building. I want to get back to that day, but unfortunately we can't. Southern, thank you for the update. The guy, Omar, that killed all the people in Orlando was eliminated by policemen during the standoff. I did not remember that. Thank you for bringing that up. All right, Dr. A, tell me about the Grace Act. What is going on now?
All right. So this is a bill that was just proposed this week, and it is currently in committee. So the Grace Act stands for Guaranteeing Religious Accommodations in Childhood Education, or the Grace Act. It was introduced on July 23rd by Senator Mike Lee, Republican from Utah. It's co-sponsored by Senator Tommy Tuberville from Alabama. The bill was read twice and referred to the Senate Committee on Health, Education, and Labor. It's called the Education, Labor, and Pensions. It's called the HELP Committee. As of the latest available information, it remains at the introduced referred stage with no further committee action. The bill is short and focused, the way we wish all bills would be. It prohibits the award of any federal education funds to an education or institution or agency that imposes a vaccination requirement unless that institution or agency maintains a policy allowing religious exemptions under these specific conditions. An individual or the parent guardian of a child under 18 may be exempted if they simply assert that receiving the vaccination would violate a sincerely held religious belief. No documentation or other information may be required to support or validate that assertion. Some schools are requiring a priest or someone else to verify that your religion is that. Right? Key definitions in the bill. Education institution or agency is an elementary school, secondary school, local educational agency, or state educational agency using the definitions from Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965. Vaccination requirement is any requirement as a condition of enrollment, attendance, participation in athletics or other student activities or employment that an individual must have received one or more vaccinations. A child is anyone under the age of 18. In short, schools or agencies that refuse to allow a pure assertion-based religious exemption or that demand supporting documentation would become ineligible for federal education funding. Sponsors and supporters present the bill as a defense of First Amendment free exercise rights and parental authority. Lee's press release argues that some schools discriminate against religious families over vaccine exemptions, that requiring documentation creates burdensome hurdles, and that federal tax dollars should not support policies that override sincerely held religious beliefs. It cites examples of families who faced exclusion from public schools, particularly in states such as California, New York, Connecticut, and Maine, that have limited or eliminated completely religious exemptions, and frames the measure as protecting access to education without forcing families to violate their faith. The bill does not mandate that states or schools create religious exemptions. It conditions federal education funding on the existence of a documentation-free religious exemption policy where vaccine requirements exist. Contact your state senators, please, ASAP, time-sensitive, and ask them, so this is U.S. senators, I apologize, your U.S. senators, and ask them to pass the GRACE Act. It's S5128 from the HELP Committee, and get it through the full Senate ASAP.
That sounds like a wonderful idea to me. Now, I've been thinking about this. Our problem is we need the oil out of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, obviously, we don't want to detonate nuclear weapons because we don't want to kill innocent people. I get that. But I'm wondering what a directional EMP would do to disrupt them. And the question I have is, could we put on a destroyer escort an EMP weapon that would actually, I'm going to say, follow the convoy along until it's out of range of Iranian rockets and drones, where it was continuously broadcasting an EMP jamming. Now, again, I have to study this a little bit more. This is just talking ex recto while I'm in the middle of a space, so it's probably not going to go well. I'm probably going to come off like an idiot, but there has got to be what I'm going to call an EMP type weapon, or something that will do. What I want is something that will degrade their electronics and their locating systems to the point where they cannot attack oil tankers, which are a massive, monstrous radar target and quite easy to hit. So I completely get that. All right, we are going to go ahead and wrap for the day. I do want to appreciate or say thank you to my co-host that came in ready for the fight today. And we're going to wrap with a couple of quotes. And the first one has always been a favorite of mine since I read the book as a teenager. All right, it's from Dune, Frank Herbert. I must not fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. I've often said that to myself in life. All right. I said it when I was in isolation Okay. Again, at the end of the day, fear is just an agitated state of worry that is going to do you no good. Let it pass through you so that you can act with confidence as you move forward. Speaking of moving forward, all right, again, the problem a lot of us traditional conservatives have is that we are very logical people. So Frank Herbert in Dune said, deep in the human unconscious is a pervasive need for a logical universe that makes sense. But the real universe is always one step beyond logic. What does he mean by that? I've often wondered that. In other words, does the chaos of the universe impact our desire for logic, and thus therein lies the conflict that is going to always create strife? Could be. That's what I think it means. But I need you to let your fear pass through you. I need you to act bravely, and I need you to take the universe's chaos and order it in your mind into a logical process to where you can achieve what is best for yourself, your family, and your country. I want to thank everyone for tuning into the show. As always, I'm deeply honored that you come in here and listen to the things I've got to say. I know you're all really here to listen to Southern Rocks and Dr. A, and I appreciate that. So thank you again for coming in. God bless each and every one of you.